Chapter 36. The Last King of Judah.
Zedekiah, at the beginning of his reign, was trusted fully by the king of Babylon, and had as a tried counselor the prophet Jeremiah. By pursuing an honorable course toward the Babylonians, and by paying heed to the messages from the Lord through Jeremiah, he could have kept the respect of many in high authority, and have had opportunity to communicate to them a knowledge of the true God. Thus the captive exiles already in Babylon would have been placed on vantage ground, and granted many liberties. The name of God would have been honored far and wide, and those that remained in the land of Judah would have been spared the terrible calamities that finally came upon them. Through Jeremiah, Zedekiah, and all Judah, including those taken to Babylon, were counseled to submit quietly to the temporary rule of their conquerors. It was especially important that those in captivity should seek the peace of the land into which they had been carried. This, however, was contrary to the inclinations of the human heart, and Satan, taking advantage of the circumstances, caused false prophets to arise among the people, both in Jerusalem and in Babylon, who declared that the yoke of bondage would soon be broken and the former prestige of the nation restored. The heeding of such flattering prophecies would have led to fatal moves on the part of the king and the exiles, and would have frustrated the merciful designs of God in their behalf. Lest an insurrection be incited and great suffering ensue, the Lord commanded Jeremiah to meet the crisis without delay, by warning the king of Judah of the sure consequences of rebellion. The captives also were admonished, by written communications, not to be deluded into believing their deliverance near. "Let not your prophets and your diviners that be in the midst of you deceive you," he urged. Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 8. In this connection, mention was made of the Lord's purpose to restore Israel at the close of the 70 years of captivity, foretold by his messengers. With what tender compassion did God inform his captive people of his plans for Israel! He knew that should they be persuaded by false prophets to look for a speedy deliverance, their position in Babylon would be made very difficult. Any demonstration or insurrection on their part would awaken the vigilance and severity of the Chaldean authorities, and would lead to a further restriction of their liberties. Suffering and disaster would result. He desired them to submit quietly to their fate, and make their servitude as pleasant as possible. And his counsel to them was, "Build ye houses, and dwell in them, and plant gardens, and eat the fruit of them, and seek the peace of the city whither I have caused you to be carried away captives, and pray unto the Lord for it, for in the peace thereof shall ye have peace." Jeremiah chapter 29, verses 5 to 7. Among the false teachers in Babylon were two men who claimed to be holy, but whose lives were corrupt. Jeremiah had condemned the evil course of these men, and had warned them of their danger. Angered by reproof, they sought to oppose the work of the true prophet, by stirring up the people to discredit his words, and to act contrary to the counsel of God in the matter of subjecting themselves to the king of Babylon. The Lord testified through Jeremiah that these false prophets should be delivered into the hands of Nebuchadnezzar and slain before his eyes. Not long afterward this prediction was literally fulfilled. To the end of time, men will arise to create confusion and rebellion among those who claim to be representatives of the true God. Those who prophesy lies will encourage men to look upon sin as a light thing. When the terrible results of their evil deeds are made manifest, they will seek, if possible, to make the one who has faithfully warned them responsible for their difficulties, even as the Jews charged Jeremiah with their evil fortunes. But as surely as the words of Jehovah through his prophet were vindicated anciently, so surely will the certainty of his messages be established today. From the first, Jeremiah had followed a consistent course in counseling submission to the Babylonians. This counsel was given not only to Judah, but to many of the surrounding nations. In the earlier portion of Zedekiah's reign, ambassadors from the rulers of Edom, Moab, Tyre, and other nations visited the king of Judah to learn whether in his judgment the time was opportune for a united revolt, and whether he would join them in battling against the king of Babylon. While these ambassadors were awaiting a response, the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah, saying, "Make these bonds and yokes, and put them upon thy neck, and send them to the king of Edom, and to the king of Moab, and to the king of the Ammonites, and to the king of Tyrus, and to the king of Zidon, by the hand of the messengers which come to Jerusalem unto Zedekiah king of Judah." Jeremiah chapter 27, verses 2 and 3. Jeremiah was commanded to instruct the ambassadors to inform their rulers that God had given them all into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, and that they were to serve him and his son's son until the very time of his land come. Jeremiah chapter 27, verse 7. The ambassadors were further instructed to declare to their rulers that if they refused to serve the Babylonian king, they should be punished with the sword and with the famine and with the pestilence, till they were consumed. Especially were they to turn from the teaching of false prophets, who might counsel otherwise. Hearken not ye to your prophets, the Lord declared, nor to your diviners, nor to your dreamers, nor to your enchanters, nor to your sorcerers, which speak unto you, saying, Ye shall not serve the king of Babylon, for they prophesy a lie unto you, to remove you far from your land, and that I should drive you out, and ye should perish. But the nations that bring their neck under the yoke of the king of Babylon, and serve him, those will I let remain still in their own land, saith the Lord, and they shall till it, and dwell therein. Jeremiah chapter 27, verses 8 to 11. The lightest punishment that a merciful God could inflict upon so rebellious a people was submission to the rule of Babylon. But if they warred against this decree of servitude, they were to feel the full rigor of his chastisement. The amazement of the assembled council of nations knew no bounds when Jeremiah, carrying the yoke of subjection about his neck, made known to them the will of God. Against determined opposition, Jeremiah stood firmly for the policy of submission. Prominent among those who presumed to gainsay the counsel of the Lord was Hananiah, one of the false prophets against whom the people had been warned. Thinking to gain the favor of the king and of the royal court, he lifted his voice in protest, declaring that God had given him words of encouragement for the Jews. Said he, Thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, saying, I have broken the yoke of the king of Babylon. Within 2 full years will I bring again into this place all the vessels of the Lord's house, that Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon took away from this place and carried them to Babylon. And I will bring again to this place Jeconiah, the son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, with all the captives of Judah, that went into Babylon, saith the Lord. For I will break the yoke of the king of Babylon. Jeremiah chapter 28, verses 2 to 4. Jeremiah, in the presence of the priests and the people, earnestly entreated them to submit to the king of Babylon for the time the Lord had specified. He cited the men of Judah to the prophecies of Hosea, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, and others whose messages of reproof and warning had been similar to his own. He referred them to events which had taken place in the fulfillment of prophecies of retribution for unrepented sin. In the past, the judgments of God had been visited upon the impenitent in exact fulfillment of his purpose, as revealed through his messengers. The prophet which prophesieth of peace, Jeremiah proposed in conclusion, when the word of the prophet shall come to pass, then shall the prophet be known that the Lord hath truly sent him. Jeremiah chapter 28, verse 9. If Israel chose to run the risk, future developments would effectually decide which was the true prophet. The words of Jeremiah counseling submission aroused Hananiah to a daring challenge of the reliability of the message delivered. Taking the symbolic yoke from Jeremiah's neck, Hananiah broke it, saying, Thus saith the Lord, Even so will I break the yoke of Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon from the neck of all nations, within the space of 2 full years. The prophet Jeremiah went his way. Jeremiah chapter 28, verse 11. Apparently he could do nothing more than to retire from the scene of conflict. But Jeremiah was given another message. Go and tell Hananiah, he was bidden, Thus saith the Lord, Thou hast broken the yokes of wood, but thou shalt make for them yokes of iron. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, I have put a yoke of iron upon the neck of all these nations, that they may serve Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon, and they shall serve him. Then said the prophet Jeremiah unto Hananiah the prophet, Hear now, Hananiah, the Lord hath not sent thee, but thou makest this people to trust in a lie. Therefore thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will cast thee from off the face of the earth. This year thou shalt die, because thou hast taught rebellion against the Lord. So Hananiah the prophet died the same year in the 7th month. Jeremiah chapter 28, verses 13 to 17. The false prophet had strengthened the unbelief of the people in Jeremiah and his message. He had wickedly declared himself the Lord's messenger, and he suffered death in consequence. In the 5th month Jeremiah prophesied the death of Hananiah, and in the 7th month his words were proved true by their fulfillment. The unrest caused by the representations of the false prophet brought Zedekiah under suspicion of treason, and only by quick and decisive action on his part was he permitted to continue reigning as a vassal. Opportunity for such action was taken advantage of shortly after the return of the ambassadors from Jerusalem to the surrounding nations, when the king of Judah accompanied Sarai, a quiet prince, Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 59, on an important mission to Babylon. During this visit to the Chaldean court, Zedekiah renewed his oath of allegiance to Nebuchadnezzar. Through Daniel and others of the Hebrew captives, the Babylonian monarch had been made acquainted with the power and supreme authority of the true God, and when Zedekiah once more solemnly promised to remain loyal, Nebuchadnezzar required him to swear to this promise in the name of the Lord God of Israel. Had Zedekiah respected this renewal of his covenant oath, his loyalty would have had a profound influence on the minds of many who were watching the conduct of those who claimed to reverence the name and to cherish the honor of the God of the Hebrews. But Judah's king lost sight of his high privilege of bringing honor to the name of the living God. Of Zedekiah it is recorded, "He did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord his God, and humbled not himself before Jeremiah the prophet, speaking from the mouth of the Lord. And he also rebelled against King Nebuchadnezzar, who had made him swear by God. But he stiffened his neck and hardened his heart from turning unto the Lord God of Israel." 2 Chronicles chapter 36, verses 12 and 13. While Jeremiah continued to bear his testimony in the land of Judah, the prophet Ezekiel was raised up from among the captives in Babylon to warn and to comfort the exiles, and also to confirm the word of the Lord that was being spoken through Jeremiah. During the years that remained of Zedekiah's reign, Ezekiel made very plain the folly of trusting to the false predictions of those who were causing the captives to hope for an early return to Jerusalem. He was also instructed to foretell, by means of a variety of symbols and solemn messages, the siege and utter destruction of Jerusalem. In the 6th year of the reign of Zedekiah, the Lord revealed to Ezekiel in vision some of the abominations that were being practiced in Jerusalem, and within the gate of the Lord's house, and even in the inner court. The chambers of images, and the pictured idols, every form of creeping things and abominable beasts, and all the idols of the house of Israel, all these in rapid succession passed before the astonished gaze of the prophet. Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 10. Those who should have been spiritual leaders among the people, the ancients of the house of Israel, to the number of 70, were seen offering incense before the idolatrous representations that had been introduced into hidden chambers within the sacred precincts of the temple court. "The Lord seeth us not," the men of Judah flattered themselves as they engaged in their heathenish practices. "The Lord hath forsaken the earth," they blasphemously declared. Ezekiel chapter 8, verses 11 and 12. There were still greater abominations for the prophet to behold. At a gate leading from the outer to the inner court he was shown women weeping for Tammuz, and within the inner court of the Lord's house, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, with their backs toward the temple of the Lord and their faces toward the east, and they worshipped the sun toward the east. Ezekiel chapter 8, verses 13 to 16. And now the glorious being who accompanied Ezekiel throughout this astonishing vision of wickedness in high places in the land of Judah inquired of the prophet, "Hast thou seen this, O son of man? Is it a light thing to the house of Judah that they commit the abominations which they commit here? For they have filled the land with violence, and have returned to provoke me to anger. And lo, they put the branch to their nose. Therefore will I also deal in fury. Mine eye shall not spare, neither will I have pity, and though they cry in mine ears with a loud voice, yet will I not hear them." Ezekiel chapter 8, verses 17 and 18. Through Jeremiah the Lord had declared of the wicked men who presumptuously dared to stand before the people in his name, "Both prophet and priest are profane. Yea, in my house have I found their wickedness. Jeremiah chapter 23, verse 11. In the terrible arraignment of Judah, as recorded in the closing narrative of the chronicler of Zedekiah's reign, this charge of violating the sanctity of the temple was repeated. Moreover, the sacred writer declared, all the chief of the priests and the people transgressed very much after all the abominations of the heathen, and polluted the house of the Lord which he had hallowed in Jerusalem. 2 Chronicles chapter 36, verse 14. The day of doom for the kingdom of Judah was fast approaching. No longer could the Lord set before them the hope of averting the severest of his judgments. Should ye be utterly unpunished? He inquired. Ye shall not be unpunished. Jeremiah chapter 25, verse 29. Even these words were received with mocking derision. The days are prolonged, and every vision faileth, declared the impenitent. But through Ezekiel this denial of the sure word of prophecy was sternly rebuked. Tell them, the Lord declared, I will make this proverb to cease, and they shall no more use it as a proverb in Israel. But say unto them, the days are at hand, and the effect of every vision. For there shall be no more any vain vision, nor flattering divination within the house of Israel. For I am the Lord. I will speak, and the word that I shall speak shall come to pass. It shall be no more prolonged, for in your days, O rebellious house, will I say the word, and will perform it, saith the Lord God. Again, testifies Ezekiel, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, behold, they of the house of Israel say, the vision that he seeth is for many days to come, and he prophesieth of the times that are far off. Therefore say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God, There shall none of my words be prolonged any more, but the word which I have spoken shall be done, saith the Lord God. Ezekiel chapter 12, verses 21 to 28. Foremost among those who were rapidly leading the nation to ruin was Zedekiah their king. Forsaking utterly the counsels of the Lord as given through the prophets, forgetting the debt of gratitude he owed Nebuchadnezzar, violating his solemn oath of allegiance taken in the name of the Lord God of Israel, Judah's king rebelled against the prophets, against his benefactor, and against his God. In the vanity of his own wisdom he turned for help to the ancient enemy of Israel's prosperity, sending his ambassadors into Egypt, that they might give him horses and much people. Shall he prosper? The Lord inquired concerning the one who had thus basely betrayed every sacred trust. Shall he escape that doeth such things? Or shall he break the covenant and be delivered? As I live, saith the Lord God, surely in the place where the king dwelleth that made him king, whose oath he despised and whose covenant he brake, even with him in the midst of Babylon, he shall die. Neither shall Pharaoh with his mighty army and great company make for him in the war, seeing he despised the oath by breaking the covenant, when, lo, he had given his hand and hath done all these things, he shall not escape. Ezekiel chapter 17, verses 15 to 18. To the profane wicked prince had come the day of final reckoning. Remove the diadem, the Lord decreed, and take off the crown. Not until Christ himself should set up his kingdom was Judah again to be permitted to have a king. I will overturn it, was a divine edict concerning the throne of the house of David, and it shall be no more until he come whose right it is, and I will give it him. Ezekiel chapter 21, verses 25 to 27.